Hey, what's up everyone and welcome back. So today I have for you what is probably the most fun I've had with a scope in a long time. And that scope we'll be looking at today is the Primary Arms GLx 1:6 Griffin. And I can't wait to show you just how versatile it is and how it did so amazingly well. But let's get started. So in order to understand this scope, we first need to unpack exactly what the naming convention means so that you understand each bit of it. And before we get too much further, I do want to say thanks to Primary Arms for supplying this optic for testing, and to True Shot Gun Club for supplying the 77 grain S&B ammo so we could reach out with this 1:6 Griffin and really test its limits. All right, now we got that out of the way, let me explain what the naming convention means. The first part is Primary Arms. Well, that's easy. It means it's made by Primary Arms. There are also 3 tiers of Primary Arms optics, which are the SLX, GLX, and PLX lines. And the SLX or silver lineup is a really great bang for your buck, whereas the GLX stands for their gold lineup. And the GLX has some extra added features and quality, and it's really that nice sweet spot before you kind of step up into that PLX tier. But I'll tease it a bit here. The PLX tier, like this PLX 1:8 Raptor M8, is stupid good. All right though, we gotta stay on track here. Back to the naming convention. The 1:6 in the name means this is an LPVO that goes from 1x magnification on the low end and 6 magnification on the high end. The scope is also first focal plane, meaning the reticle changes size with magnification and stays true throughout the entire magnification range. And we did a video on first focal plane and second focal plane and all those different differences and nuances. If you want to check that out, I'll link to it up here. And I will say my entire opinion has kind of leaned more towards first focal plane due to this reticle and scope specifically. And as we go, you'll see us easily hit 600 yards with the 6x magnification using various bullet weights. But I'm sure we could go out further if you wanted more magnification. And the PLX version does come in first focal plane out to 8x magnification, and there is also a 10x in the SLX line, but that does use second focal plane. And that 6x magnification is really just what I've found to be that sweet spot in terms of range and eye relief. Finally, in the last part of our naming convention is the reticle, which here is the Griffin. The Griffin reticle is fantastic in how it uses a mil-hash Christmas tree, along with vertical and horizontal ranging that also includes the center CQB ring. It's magical, and Primary Arms actually does a lot of really nice BDC reticles, but the Griffin is special because it allows for any caliber, any bullet weight, and more importantly, any barrel length. And our 20-inch Criterion core with 77 grain 5.56 just wouldn't work well with a BDC designed for a 16-inch barrel and 55 grain ammo. I also did a short video on this 2022 optics testing platform. If you want to check out that video, I'll link to that up here if you want to see all the parts or if you want to build something similar. But tell you what, let's get started today, and I want to show you everything that comes in the box. What do you mean we lost the footage? Look at the optic in detail and then go over the actual process of mounting the optic. Ooh, not really on that one either. I still need to make that video. Note to self, make optic mounting video. Then we'll go over all the magic of the Griffin reticle and continue into some optics testing with the 1x clarity, eye relief, illumination, turret rotation, and glass clarity, and then we'll do some close range testing in my yard. And then I'll show you a ton of long range footage along with all the fun we had on the range, and then we'll wrap up with our normal pros and cons. All right though, let's get moving and let me show you everything it comes with. No, I thought you were joking when you said we lost the footage. Oh, good grief. Let's just show the optic up close then. Here we see our Primary Arms GLx 1:6 Griffin mounted in our Scalarworks Leap 08 1.93 height mount. The finish on the 1:6 Griffin is extremely nice and gives a clean, uniform matte finish throughout. Moving to the diopter, we see this has a nice rubberized eyepiece that helps you grip onto it and give a really nice overall feel. I did find the diopter adjustment to be a bit tight, but as I just adjusted and left it, it ended up being a total non-issue. Moving forward, we see our magnification adjustment that allows us to travel from 1x to 6x magnification. The magnification ring has segmented blocks that allow your thumb to catch easily if you need to change magnification from an odd angle. Additionally included is this small throw lever that we also saw on the PLX lineup of 2022 optics. Moving the magnification though, I again noted that it's a bit stiff, and I did need to break it in by going absolutely ham on it for a while. It was just not the buttery smooth ring that I was used to on the PLX line, but the throw lever certainly made it less of an issue. And Primary Arms actually does make this really cool flip-up throw lever for the PLX line, and I need to just order that and switch out the little nub on the magnification ring. And I do have one, but it's currently resting on my PLX 1:8 M8 meters that I haven't shown you yet. But I'll absolutely steal that for this optic later. Looking at our turrets, we see the turrets are capped, but they are easily removed. Underneath, you not only find the reticle adjustment, but the housing itself has a nice O-ring at the bottom to keep out moisture and debris. Moving our elevation and windage adjustments, we see the adjustment is easy and provides us with a fairly nice tactile and audible click. I had no issues to note about making adjustments when zeroing, and we got a nice clean 50-yard zero. Well, kind of. It was a bit high, but we fixed it. But I did want to comment on how these turrets themselves are kind of a set it and forget it design. Since the reticle itself gives you all the mill holdover and windage, you don't really need anything set besides your zero. So I got my zero perfect and then never really touched the caps again. Like for instance, if I wanted to go out to 600 yards, I just go to the actual marking on the reticle and then make the shot and not adjust the actual top turrets. Now, there is an included cap if you want to make adjustments on the turret itself and not use the covered cap. To install this, remove the cap by loosening the ring at these 3 positions, but don't back the screws out entirely. Then the center cap can be lifted off and you can slide the adjustable ring cap into place. Just tighten it into position with the 3 screw locations located on the cap. Now, you only get an elevation cap and not an extra windage one also, so you're probably not using the center chevron if there's any wind at all, so I scrapped this and went back to the covered turrets. The covered turrets make more sense as a hunter lugging my gear anyway. And I'll show you in all the footage, and I think you're really going to see just how fast the Griffin holdovers really make you. All right, though, let's go to the next part and go mount it all up. Well, actually, I already mounted it. And one day when I actually get to it, there'll be a fancy link up here to how to actually mount your scopes. But I did use the Scalarworks Leap 08 1.93 mount. This mount design allows for auto leveling through the use of a bottom alignment screw that mates to the bottom of the scope housing. The Leap 08 also allows for an offset red dot to be mounted on either the left or the right side. And this is important because some scope mounts only allow you to mount it on the right, so having it on both is really awesome. But I've never actually seen these in stock, so if you see them, let me know immediately. The Scalarworks mount is also toolless and uses 2 barrel screws. That means it can be installed hand tight and also removed easily if I'm at the range. And it really makes swapping the optic or the entire setup from platform to platform super easy. Now the 1.93 height, I'm a little iffy on it, but we are testing some different scope mounts and some different heights, so keep an eye out for that one. Some foreshadowing, the 1.93 height makes mounting a 509T on the top pretty much impossible. All right, so I think we're all together now, so what's next? We get to look at the reticle, and that is absolutely the best part. Taking a look at the 1:6 GLx reticle, we see a ton of really smart stuff going on. As the reticle is first focal plane and changes with magnification, let me show you the 1x first. In 1x, the Griffin reticle has stadia lines that extend all the way to the edge of the scope from the 12, 3, 6, and 9 o'clock positions. Then at the center, you have the clean CQB ring and chevron tip. And there's some really nice synergy happening here where the 4 different stadia lines actually make it really easy to track where the reticle is, even if you're moving in and out of dark areas. And keeping tabs on the reticle was actually a problem I ran into with a ton of other LPVOs at 1x magnification. Which means it's easier to keep track of your center reticle position with this reticle, and then use the CQB ring to make rapid engagement shots, or use the chevron tip for accurate engagement even at 1x magnification. And all of this with multi-caliber and multi-barrel length. But watch what happens to the reticle when we zoom it in. Here, the center CQB ring turns into a fully featured weapon system that Primary Arms is just known for. On the center of the reticle, we see the normal ACSS chevron becomes much larger to give you that heightened accuracy out to your zero. And some people really seem to hate the chevron tip, but I think it's better than a red dot in just absolutely every way. But we can disagree, and that's healthy too. As we move down the reticle, the Griffin then has a full mil grid that moves in 1 mil increments all the way down, along with 1 mil increments to the left and right to account for windage. Additionally, in the center are vertical ranging to measure an 18-inch shoulder-to-shoulder width at 400, 500, and 600 yards. And you can set up your reticle and your weapon system so that those hash marks for like 600 actually lines up on the reticle in that position, but I don't stress out about it. You'll see what I mean when we move to our actual shooting footage. And I say that because in my current setup, it would be easy for me to use the vertical ranging like on this target to give me a distance at 600 yards, and then just adjust and fire at my 600 distance dope measurement. But it's whichever one is easier for you and whichever one you prefer. The mil-grid reticle just gives you a simple and easy way to record it all so you can mark where all your shots are at. The Strelok Pro app didn't have our exact reticle loaded yet when I was recording this, but this does give you an idea as to what our 20-inch setup with our 77 grain ended up with our 50-yard zero. Now remember though, don't line up your measurements with mine. This is on my range with my weapon system in my environment. But this is where we ended up ish. We were a bit high and I made some adjustments later on that you'll see. The reticle also uses vertical ranging where you can place the feet of the target at the bottom of the marker and it matches the appropriate height of a 5'10" individual to determine target distance. If the target was obstructed, you could still place the markers at the bottom of the ground and measure upward. Now, I will say, I don't know why all the vertical ranging markers just aren't in a straight line, as this would make determining height far easier as I just place the same horizontal line on the ground and then determine height much faster. I don't know, Dimitri's a super smart guy. I'm sure he has a good reason for it, but I just put him in a line. Another neat trick with the reticle, as the entire Christmas tree is also mil-grid, this allows you to easily make measurements and determine target height if you can do some basic math. It also makes zeroing a total breeze as it literally shows you how much to adjust for. You just measure off how far off you were using the grid, make those adjustments, and you're good to go. All right, so let's get some actual tests going and let's begin with the 1x clarity. Here we see the 1x glass has some really nice clarity in the image, and I really love the way the reticle extends out to easily tell where the center dot is. As I move around though, you can see the most minor amount of fisheye on the outside of the lens. As the image comes closer, it all cleans up extremely nicely though. Interestingly though, I never noticed this effect prior to now, as actually aiming with both eyes open makes this effect completely unnoticeable. Testing some closer objects, there's no visual distortion outside of about 3 yards. And as you get in that distance, optical physics take over and distort the distance to the object. But this is the same for all LPVOs because physics is a real thing, and I just can't wait for all the comments telling me how great LPVOs do in CQB environments. All right, now that we got those people angry, let's go look at eye relief. Here I found the eye relief of the 1x to be pretty forgiving. You have a lot of play and it makes for rapid engagement at 1x simple and easy, even with my 1.93 scope mount height. Swapping over to the 6x, the eye box definitely gets tighter, but you still have a few inches of play. I still had plenty of room to get the proper eye relief in standing or prone without having to make 100 of adjustments on the stock. The eye relief really is pretty nice, and I don't really have any complaints here. And generally, a 6x magnification is going to give you a lot more leeway in eye relief than, say, like an 8x or a 10x magnification. All right, though, let's move on to our next one and move on to illumination. Now, pause, though, as a lot of folks seem to think that scopes should be red dot bright. But those scopes that are that bright Well, it only lasts for like 3 or 4 hours, so that brightness really does come at a cost, but regardless, let's test it. Looking at the illumination adjustment, there are 10 different settings as we mentioned earlier, and the center ring and chevron are the ones that are illuminated. At 1x, the illumination is really only noticed indoors or in low light situations like CQB usage. I will say that even at max magnification, this is really only usable at dusk, which makes sense from a hunting or target acquisition standpoint. At 1x, with all the cool stadia markers, I don't really need illumination to show me where the dot is, so it does make more sense to have that illumination as the sun goes down and those markings are harder to see. Testing the other brightness setting, it gets really dim, which makes me wonder if these are night vision settings. But I tried that, and that whole thing makes me pretty confused. I don't think it was designed for that. But I will say, I wish the Christmas tree was illuminated, as I think that'd be far more important to be able to see if I was taking a shot at dusk, and not really a lighted, quick engagement ring. Like if it was dusk, I'd much rather be able to see my holdovers illuminated. But anyway, enough about illumination. Let's go on to the next one, which is actually the turret adjustments. As we showed earlier, the GLx 1-6 Griffin uses covered turrets, and moving these gives you a clean and audible click, but it's not as insane as, say, the Arkin or even the beloved GLx 2.5-10 Griffin. Hey, yeah, put the 2.5-10 GLx Griffin turrets on this! And while the turrets are a set-it-and-forget-it solution thanks to the Griffin Reticle, the turrets themselves have a very fine adjustment, but do snap into place nicely. Just take your time and you'll have no issues getting these dialed in perfectly. Now, if you're planning to use this reticle and just always use the chevron tip and then make all your adjustments for elevation and windage on the actual turrets, I don't know if I would actually recommend this scope to you for that solution. All right, though, let's move on to our next test, which is the glass clarity. Here, I'll swap to an old camera system as the new one has a manual focus that can throw this test off. Looking at the targets in our distance, we see the glass clarity at 6x is great for this price tier. I wasn't totally blown away, but I also found it to be completely functional for everything we threw at it. Here, I'll overlay the PLX-C 1:8 at 6x magnification so you can see a side-by-side with the higher tier of glass. The PLX is double in price, but this will show you if you're curious on the difference in glass quality as you step up. Again though, I never really noticed the glass quality until I got into the small minutia nuances of this review, and I'll tell you now that the glass quality performed perfectly for us all the way out to 600 yards. All right, but let's keep going, set up my backyard and do some close range testing and see how this performs. Now, I do have this on a 20-inch setup, so I'm definitely not gonna be ultra fast, but at least you can get an idea of how it looks. All right though, let's do it. As we mentioned earlier, the forgiving eye relief and easy to acquire reticle makes close target engagement extremely easy. This also allows the user to use the quick engagement CQB ring or use the precision chevron. The outer stadia lines make it easy to find my reticle without any illumination at all, which allowed me to have some extremely fast target engagement at close distance. And I was surprised at how well those outer lines allow me to keep tabs on exactly where I was with the reticle. And the 2022 Primary Arms reticles are really a nice improvement over the 1x and the CQB engagement that make that test super fun. All right though, let's go do the fun stuff and head out to the range and actually do some real live fire testing. So first we set up and did a basic bore sight and got set for our 50-200 yard zero, and then we did some baby steps out to 100 yards. Oh, and we're shooting 77 grain S&B. I showed a lot of this optic in that ammo review footage that I'll link to up here if you want to see that also. But let's push out and see how this thing does at 300. I think it'll still be silly easy. Yeah, it definitely was. So let's do something a little bit more tricky, show off this reticle a little bit, and do some 100 to 300 yard transitions. Well, as we talked about in the ammo video, this reticle can do a lot more than 300 yards, so let's move out to the 600. Here, I'll show you our rangefinder footage so you can see our targets at, 330-ish 430-ish and, what is this, 600-ish. We already really had the 300 dialed in, so then we moved out to learn that distance of that 430-yard target. The camera was focused on the target, not the reticle when I recorded, so I'll try to fix that as we go, but I'll let you enjoy the footage.
Hi.
And as you can see, the mill markings make it really easy to find our target distance. All right, though, let's move out to 600 next.
Second one.
There you go.
Got it. Got it.
Well, that was still pretty easy. All right, let's do some fun transitions. And I'll be honest, we had so much fun. We did something we rarely do and actually went out for a second day of range testing with this optic. And let me show you how that went. Now, I did fix the optic being out of focus, but now the target is out of focus. Whatever. We did also realize at this point that our 50-yard zero was about half a mil high, so we fixed that and readjusted. I want to play this footage for you though, so you can just see how easy it was for us to just realign and find all our targets using that mill reticle. And then go to 400. Now it was going to be the top tip, but now it's going to be down halfway. So it's going to be, a little bit, right there. Yep. Just set it on like a dinner plate. Hit that one. Hit.
See if I can hit it. Hey, ready? Probably high. Nope, still got it. You want another one?
Yep.
Yep, right in the middle. Hit.
Dude, dead center.
Now, as I mentioned before, this reticle is multi-caliber, multi-barrel length, and multi-bullet weight. So we just switched over to some PMC X-Tac 55 grain to see how it does. And with just some very small adjustments, we were right back on at the 430 yard. And then it was still really easy to run that 300, 400, 500 drill with just making some very slight adjustments. Overall though, from both of our range trips, that Griffin reticle just absolutely shined in either 77 grain or 55 grain all the way out to 600. All right though, let's do some pros and cons, and the first one I'm sure you're gonna hear me say as a pro is that Griffin reticle. With the ability to use multiple calibers and multiple barrel lengths, the Griffin reticle again proves why it's an absolute must-have reticle for any scope. The Christmas tree allows for extremely fast target engagement by using holdover, while still providing the user with horizontal and vertical ranging to measure targets out to distance. It just performs extremely well. So for my next pro, it's going to actually be the symmetry of the reticle and the eye relief that just makes the 1X so much fun. With the Stadia lines giving you extremely quick identification of the center reticle and forgiving eye box, the GLx 1-6 Griffin allows you to engage targets extremely quickly and never lose the position of your reticle as you move from bright or dark areas, while still providing you with the quick engagement CQB circle or the precision chevron for tactical or precision accuracy. And the Griffin reticle really was one of the easiest reticles to track at 1X that I've used to date, and it really makes one of my cons about Illumination seem kind of silly. I do want to say one more pro though, and that's actually that multi-caliber and multi-barrel length that it can do. The Griffin mill design allows us to easily use this reticle on our 20-inch setup and make quick adjustments for various calibers. But I could just as easily swap this over to our 12.5 with a silencer and be able to record our dope to make repeatable shots out to distance with the included mill markings. And from a hunting standpoint, I just love to use this optic because I can put it on damn near anything. All right, but with pros comes some cons, right? Well, let's go over a few. The first one is, I found the entire scope just isn't as refined as some of the PLX offerings. And yeah, this may be a given, but I found the magnification to be really stiff, and was nothing compared to the buttery smooth rotation of the 1x8 PLX-C. Even the diopter of the 1:6 GLX Griffin seemed like it wanted to fight me at times. It's all overall functional, but from the turrets to the dials, everything just seemed like it needed a little more love. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm picking on some fairly small stuff as you get a pretty bonkers scope for the price. All right, though, another con that I think is worth mentioning that we may want to revisit is that fisheye at 1x. Now, this may be a larger issue to some folks, but it was less so to me. But I did want to mention it as I did notice it slightly as I moved down to the 1x magnification, and particularly as some objects come within closer distances. But it didn't bother me that much because I shoot properly with both eyes open, but at least you know about it so you can make the most educated purchasing decisions. All right, though, let's go over my last con, and that's actually going to be the illumination. But maybe not for what you think. As the reticle doesn't illuminate much in 1x, you really don't need it with the added stadia lines to find your center, so it seems odd to have the CQB ring illuminated. I mean, I get it. I get what they're trying to do, but it just kind of leaves that whole mill grid portion just out to dry. I would have preferred this setup to have the Christmas tree illuminated, as you're far more likely to use the illumination for a long distance shot in the dusk and need your proper holdover illuminated than need a CQB ring slightly bright. Again though, I am just nitpicking because I've never actually had a scope perform so well over various distances and various calibers. And it's kind of dumb that I'm using it as a con because through all my testing I didn't even use the illumination at all. The Primary Arms GLx 1:6 Griffin, with its amazing 1x reticle and eye relief, combined with the multi-caliber and multi-barrel length mill grid, just makes this optic an absolute powerhouse for the price tier it sits in. And you couldn't possibly go wrong with this. But me though, well, I actually love the Griffin so much that I think the refinement of the controls would make it worthwhile for me to actually step up into the PLX version into the 1x8 PLX-C Griffin. And then give this 20-inch setup even more magnification and then some ultra clean controls to take this whole setup and dial it up to 11. And I'll let you know if I get to try out that PLX version, and I'll definitely put it on the channel and we'll review it. But that GLX is absolutely ridiculous for what you get at the price. So I hope this video was useful in your purchasing decisions. I do want to say thanks to all of our Patreon supporters and all of our YouTube members. You're the ones that make all this possible, where we get to show you all this cool stuff and go test it all. I want to say thanks to everyone that likes, comments, and subscribes. Comment down below what barrel length and caliber you'd put this optic on. All right, everyone, Walsh out. Can you hear that? It's just constant. Goodness. Who got that on camera? Hey, dummies. Hey, dum-dums. Shut your face.